Hi, Curtis here, creator of A Masked Avenger, The Invincible Man, and The Quitters. This is part 2 of my tutorial series, how to make a 2D animation in Blender. Alright, so we're making a 2D rigged animation with a character my brother created called Mouse. So right now I've got her loaded up into Sketchbook, all the concept art I have of her. And so I'm going to be working on pencils and a bit of character design. I'm going to take my brother's 3D model and I'm going to adapt it to my 2D style. Now, if you'll notice, the concept art is in a 3/4 pose. That's because that's the best pose for animating in my style. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the transparency and really bring it down. I like the head I have here. She is obviously going to be wearing a mask. So I'll grab my pencil, start a new layer, zoom in a little bit. I'm going to keep the eyes. I'll probably have to move them a little bit. Just a little less transparency yet. Pencils are pretty light. So this is just going to be the pencils and concepting of the character in her costume today. And so I'm just going to kind of go over what I have already here. I'm going to move the eyes though, probably. And so all I'm doing is just kind of doing rough pencils of where everything is. I really like her face shape. It really suits my style. And that's an important thing when you're creating characters is there's a little thing about aesthetics. And that just means that something is pleasing to the eye. You can have an ugly character and they can still look aesthetically pleasing. Now, aesthetics is very difficult because there's a lot of talented artists who maybe went to school or something like that, but they don't necessarily have an eye for aesthetics or an eye for art. And it's very important, and I'm not sure that it can be taught per se. But having a good eye for what looks good can be very important. So yeah, I'm just going to quickly do her head here, just rough shapes. The nose I'll need. And the mouth I'll need for sure. The toque and stuff like that, probably won't need that. To be honest, I haven't drawn a lot of female characters as an artist just in general. So we're roughly going to figure out where her head's going to be. And then the neck will come down here. And probably the hair, but the hair is going to kind of go behind her head. I'm thinking it'll make it easier for animating later on. And I'm not sure if I need eyebrows for this, but I can always erase it or just not ink it later on. So I'll have to look at kind of the concepts of what her costume looks like. Okay, so if I unhide that, my pencils kind of look like that for now. Her eyes, though, do look a little uneven. So what I'm going to do is just use the grab tool. I'm going to just circle around her eye here. And I'm just going to move that all up a little bit. I mean, I could move the other eye down. That's another option. And yeah, so the eyes look a bit more level. Really, when you're doing the pencils for this style of animation, and just animation in general, I guess, when you're creating the character, you really want them in a rest pose. So I'm going to unhide my brother's body. He's made of the 3D model here. And again, drop the transparency. Now his characters are a lot less stylized in their build than mine. So I'm just going to get rough proportions here off of what he's done. But in reality, I'll probably have to thicken her up a little bit to suit my style. So I'll probably just make her arms a little bit thicker. And then her body a little bit thicker as well. But I think the height and stuff might be okay. I really like the design my brother made of this character. I think the aesthetics do look amazing on it, and it's just an appealing looking character. Hips is something that's really interesting. I used to always end both male and female hips just at the waist. It's actually something that goes quite a bit higher, so we're just going to make her a little bit wider than what my brother has. She doesn't have a typical comic book woman build. She's slightly different, so I want to kind of keep that aesthetic, though I really like it. So this is a little difficult for me. I'll have to really think this through. I don't really have a waist for her, which is something generally that I need. I'm just going to roughen the hand size here. And I'll probably have to move stuff around for my final. I usually, in my rest pose, use fists just because it works for me a bit better. But you can do whatever rest pose you need. And I would generally change the rest pose a little bit from this. I'm just trying to get the basic shapes in, and then I'll play with that for the rest pose. The rest pose, generally you want the elbows bent a little bit and the knees bent a little bit. It just helps for later. That's something you can also do later when you're actually in Blender rigging the character. Sometimes I wait till then to do that, but it just helps with the joints that the closer you can get to the final product in rest pose, the better. So I'm just going to zoom out here and see how the body looks. So I would say that generally I would make her legs a little bit thicker than this. So all I'm doing is selecting, and then I'm just going to grab. All I'm going to do is select, and then I'm going to grab and just stretch it sideways, essentially. I also might bring her legs up a little bit. That's kind of the beauty of 2D art, is you can manipulate it after the fact quite easily. I was doing some pencil art the other day, and no move tool, no stretch tool once it's down on paper. Okay, so I think that's pretty good. Like I said, I can probably change her rest pose later where I bend the knees a little bit. Just change this hand up a little here. And that shoulder. And if I compare her with my Masked Avenger character, just kind of see how her build compares. She's actually quite petite. So, stretch her out a little bit. Yeah, I think I might go with that. So now I'm going to grab that reference photo. I'm just going to duplicate it and move it over just so I can kind of see her character design. And what I really need to put in here for details on the pencils. So usually I'd start another layer with this in case I screw up, but that's usually when I'm concepting a character from scratch. Here I kind of have the character's basic design right in front of me, so I don't really need that. I like concepting a character, having nice, distinguishable, big features in each character. Here, obviously, her red gloves and boots stand out, and she's got a bit of a triangle shape on her neck that I like. And sometimes having a logo or something simple like that can really make your character stand out and pop. when you're concepting them. You want to have something that really makes them pop or stand out, and not just putting things in like a color swap of a different character, but not really adding what makes that character dynamic or unique, you know. Okay, so we're going to move to the helmet here. So I really like her helmet design as well. It's got a nice eyepiece around it, and then obviously the ears are a nice touch. So it looks like I don't need the eyebrows, so I'll quickly erase those. Actually, let's keep them kind of lightly there, just so I have a reference for where the eye shape will be. Now this, I'm not sure the level of detail, so I'm going to go ahead and create another layer again. For me, when I design a character, I really like to, or draw a character just in general, I like to start with the eyes, because I find if I don't nail the eyes, I might as well throw the entire drawing out. And that's one thing I really liked about most design that I've done so far, is I really like her eye shape, so I wanted to retain that. And it comes just above. So yeah, at this stage, stuff kind of looks sketchy and awful, but that'll change in a little bit. How do I do this? Should have probably started with the big shape first, and then gone into the smaller one. No, don't like that. So I think what I'll do, zoom in a bit on the head, scroll over. So as you can tell from my art, it's pretty simplistic in design. And this is kind of the style I've come to adopt now. And so Sketchbook is a very simple program. I don't recommend it for like really talented artists or people doing a lot of detail in their art. But if you're doing a cartoony style or inking in a cartoony style, it actually works really great because the tools are very simple. It's great for beginners or early artists because it's very simple to use, and you can use it cross-platform, which is really nice. And then what'll be happening is I'll be drawing her and inking her and coloring her all in Sketchbook, and then I'll be importing all those images into Blender and then rigging her, animating her, and doing all that kind of stuff there. So there are some things that you do have to consider when you're doing this art style, is that movement is very important. So sometimes I have to give up things in my character design because I know they won't move right. So that's kind of unfortunate sometimes, but not really liking that ear. Try that again. I think it's too far back on the head. Again, some style can sometimes come over functionality, and aesthetics can come over how things should actually work. Sometimes it's better to just be more aesthetically pleasing to the eye over functionality, and just making it so it looks right. Might not really make sense in real life, some stuff, but it can look good. So that's going to be the rough sketch, and I guess I got to add that little mouse symbol on the chest as well. So circle. That's kind of a light, it looks like, so that probably won't get inked. It'll just get drawn on after. So I'll just have to remember that. There's a lot of detail you can see in the 3D model of her. I won't be adding all that little detail. It just doesn't suit my style. But a lot of the basic stuff is there. I might have to move her head down or do something with the hair here, I guess. So I'm going to run the hair behind. Maybe what I'll do is just grab the hair And the moving tool is really nice. And then I'm just going to move the hair up, actually, is probably what I'll do here. I think I grabbed that wrong. So yeah, if you need to, you can always move stuff around. So I'll move that up. I'm not going to have the hair on the front. Unfortunately, that just doesn't work with my style of animation to really have that exact thing up front. So I'm going to push it all behind just for simplicity of animation and modeling. And then all this hair, even though it's in front or it looks like it's on top, it'll be kind of behind her. So I have a little bit of hair there on the left as well. So I would say I really nailed what I was looking for here. I think I just need to do a little bit of touch-ups on the gloves. There's a little bit of a dip there. I should be able to do that in Blender. I'm hoping it'll work. Having that little dip should work. And another thing to consider too is when her arm moves out from behind her body, this arm will show. So sometimes I'll draw it and you'll really see it when I ink it, that there's going to be a arm behind there. So I would say it's pretty good. As far as the feet, I generally do one almost to the left and then another one staggered slightly forward. That just helps make it look like they're standing, but then it also works for walk cycles. So that's kind of the position of the foot. So the toe, the big toe is kind of right there. And then here, the big toe is about here. Normally, I give my characters big, goofy toes. But since she's a girl, I kind of got to tone that down probably a little bit. I could probably make her just a slight bit thinner, I think. So just erase those lines. And the nice thing about pencils is they're kind of scribbly. So you can really choose the line you want when you ink. And then I'll have to go in and rotate this hand. Just so it suits the modeling a bit better. And again, I do fists. You can do anything. There is ways that I'll show you that you can make them point. You can open their hands. That's not a problem. I just do fists because it's a good relaxed pose. Like it looks natural when they're standing still. And this arm just looks slightly longer than the other one. So I'm just going to move that up. And I don't necessarily do a lot of detail in the hands because I kind of know what I'm doing there already. And yeah, I think that's it. She looks pretty good for pencils. Just a little bit of touch-ups. She's going to have a bit of a hip. So I'll have to figure out where the seam is though. She doesn't have a belt. All right. And then for the jaw and the mouth, I'm going to have to figure out what I'm going to do there to make it work. If her jaw will just pop in front of this gray part and just the whole skin will drop down. Or if I'll make the gray part here move. And then I got to just box in her ear a little bit. And once you get it looking good, you can combine the pencil layers just so you can change their transparency easily. And we're going to be using a ton of layers. So if we put that beside our reference, or put our reference beside it, this is kind of what she started as. So I'd say she looks pretty solid. All right, that was part 2 of the tutorial, pencils and concepting. Next, we'll be inking the character and working with layers. Seize the day and create something you're passionate about.